on, man, profiting off a pandemic that's so May 2020. And that is the accusation against the nation's top coronavirus expert, Dr. Anthony Fauci, after he announced he's publishing a book this year. It's the same accusation that was leveled against sleazy New York Governor Andrew Cuomo after he published his own ridiculous book on pandemic leadership after killing scores of helpless old people. So does this prove that Dr. Fauci is more interested in the limelight than the COVID fight? The book is called Expect the Unexpected, 10 Lessons on Truth, Service, and the Way Forward. And it comes out in November. In it, we're told Dr. Foha, quote, shares the lessons that have shaped his life philosophy, offering an intimate view of one of the world's greatest medical minds, as well as universal advice to live by. It's reportedly only 80 pages long, so how much advice could possibly be in there? And does it include tips on flip-flopping like this?
If you look at the evolution of the virus in bats and what's out there now, is very, very strongly leaning towards this could not have been artificially or deliberately manipulated.
Because we don't know 100% what the origin is, it's imperative that we look and we do an investigation.
Masks are not theater. Masks are protective.
The former head of the FDA, Scott Gottlieb, say it's time to start relaxing the indoor mask mandates. Is he right?
No, I think so. And I think you're going to probably seeing that as we go along and as more people get vaccinated.
Oh, there's my glasses, so I have them. He's having a tough time keeping his story straight. Not a good thing for a writer. The Fauci haters, they are not impressed with the book, among them Arizona Congressman Andy Biggs, who tweeted, quote, profiting from the pandemic with a book deal is truly a new low. It's actually not a new low. We've seen this low before. Dr. Fauci, already the highest paid person in the entire federal government. So where is he finding time to write a book in the middle of a once-in-a-century health catastrophe? Let's get into it with tonight's party panel. We've got Reason Magazine and Reason.com editor-in-chief Catherine Mangu-Ward. We've got first-time panelist, Accuracy in Media president Adam Guillette, and Democrat strategist, radio host, and Fox News contributor, Leslie Marshall. Welcome, everyone. Woo!
Hey, Kennedy.
Hi. So, Catherine, let us begin. I think my favorite part about this story is not the utter hypocrisy of writing these things when you're still gainfully employed as a public servant. It's that Morgan Fairchild reached out to Dr. Fauci in one of the emails released through a FOIA request by BuzzFeed News and said, Dr. Fauci, you can use my Twitter account if you want to reach more people. I thought that was Morgan Fairchild, my girlfriend. Your thoughts, Catherine?
I mean, none of us would ever want to have our emails FOIA'd, which to my mind is an excellent reason not to work for the government. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the idea that Fauci and Cuomo have both now written books about their incredibly exemplary leadership that we may all follow in their footsteps strikes me as at the very least too soon and probably just flat out a bad idea. These are not books that are going to age well, and the Fauci book is not aging well before it even hits bookstores.
Yeah, we also have a Fauci action figure. And Adam, that brings me to one of your points. This whole thing is reminiscent of a certain Star Wars character that no one wants to see a feature-length movie made of. And who would that be?
No, that's exactly right. It's as if they did a Star Wars spin-off about Jar Jar Binks. He's a failure of it. And they say you can learn...
That was really good. Sorry.
Who is the person? I want to find the person who 15 months into a pandemic is like, you know, I haven't gotten enough Anthony Fauci in my life. Where can I get more? I want to find that person. And imagine being like somebody who was an mRNA vaccine technology enthusiast years ago working on it. And you find out that this guy is the media darling of the pandemic. It's sickening.
Well, it's sickening that he's been wrong about so many things and has... Have you been following the growing fight over critical race theory? Some parents in Virginia are outraged over their school district's push to teach the controversial Marxist ideology. Critical race theory asserts American history and institutions are built on and infused with racism. It's been spreading like wildfire in classrooms across the country. In one suburb outside D.C., parents have reached the boiling point. They formed a group called Fight for Schools to push back on a mandatory plan for teachers to complete training focused on, quote, systemic oppression and implicit bias. So is critical race theory going to be a required curriculum going forward? And how can you stop it? The party panel is back. Catherine Ward, Adam Guillette, and Leslie Marshall. All right, so Catherine, obviously I will start with you because you're in Virginia, yes? Or are you in D.C.?
I'm in D.C. I grew up in Virginia.
So you are close by, and these parents are upset for very obvious reasons because this is not settled social science. There is still a great deal of controversy when it comes to critical race theory. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm not sure social science is ever settled social science, to be fair. Listen, I don't think critical race theory is the right approach to teaching kids about the very, very real problem of racism in this country. I think there are a lot of flaws in both the underlying theory as well as the way it's executed in schools. But I'm equally troubled by the fact that this is now fodder for politicians, and we have politicians telling teachers what they can and can't teach in the classroom in both directions. It sucks for teachers, and it's also just a terrible way to do education. Politicians are not educators, and they shouldn't be in that business. This is not what the government is for. Of course, this just slides me right down the slippery slope to school choice. As always, I would want parents to be able to have their kids educated the way they think is right.
Yes, and that's not the same thing for kids in the same family, kids in the same district, kids in the same state. But it is, and I agree with you, a one-size-fits-all approach from anyone is the wrong approach. And we were starting to make good headway in terms of school choice, but we have been backsliding, Adam, with critical race theory. Your thoughts?
Well, that's right. So often, conservatives and libertarians get upset about what they see as the big threats coming from Washington, D.C. But there are tyrants in your community that are 10 times worse than AOC, and that get away with it because we're not paying attention to them enough. And I'm so glad to see these parents taking a stand against it. And what I want to know is, how do these race baiters, how do they get to pretend to be fans of Martin Luther King when all they want to do is judge people based on the color of their skin rather than the content of their character? Remember when we talked about how stereotyping was a bad thing? You don't hear that word used by them anymore because that's all they want to do is stereotype and feel garbage into the minds of young kids. It's terrifying.
And, you know, there's something called whiteness, which is seen, Leslie, as this big negative blob. And if they determine that you belong under the umbrella of whiteness, then you have naturally bad intent, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Well, I'm white, and clearly not all white people are bad.
On alcohol service due to, and Asian Americans are completely pushed out of public education. All right. After that last story, you might need a drink and a vacation. Unfortunately, I got some bad news for you. Southwest and American Airlines extending their bans on alcohol service due to disturbing and disruptive passenger behavior. This after a Southwest flight attendant lost 2 teeth with the passenger after she was assaulted last week. The Federal Aviation Administration has received 2,500 reports of unruly passengers, including 22 civil penalties. So will this booze ban smooth the tension or make the situation even worse? Catherine, I think it's a bad idea. What are your thoughts?
So we've tried prohibition before, different substances actually. And while, of course, a couple of airline companies refusing to sell booze on their flights is not a mistake on the scale of national prohibition, as we did, as we experimented with in the United States in the 1920s. We will see some of the same dysfunction. We will see people smuggling booze. We will see people pre-gaming flight. It's going to be.
They already are.
Yeah, they already are. And the idea that somehow by not selling you the little teeny bottle of Jack Daniels for like $18 or whatever on your flight is going to be the thing that makes airline passengers behave well, I find a little hard to believe. There was a great piece in The Atlantic this week, actually, about how a lot of the pathologies around alcohol have to do with the social context. And frankly, the social context of an airplane right now is terrible. So I am not surprised that alcohol leads to bad behavior there. I would say maybe the airline companies should try to improve the social context rather than banning the booze.
And they could start by not charging us for checked bags, Adam.
Well, Well, any frequent traveler would be surprised to see this happening on American, not so surprised to see it happening on Southwest. We all know Southwest has the best employees, maybe some of the worst customers. If you remember the Southwest Airlines reality show, the thing got canceled because every episode was the same. Passengers were too drunk to fly. American tries to compete with Delta and United. Southwest tries to compete with Greyhound. They win both in profits and probably in blood alcohol content.
Well, that is